Welcome, friends and professionals. We are back with another Modern Lending Mastermind live. For those of you that have never tuned into these before, typically we host these internally. And every single month we get together, bring in a topic and try to drive our skills forward. And then we decided, why are we just doing it internally? Let's just be supportive. Let's just collaborate. Let's just get out there. Collaboration over competition. So now we do these things live for you all to hang out with us too and join. So we're going to be talking about VA loans today. Man, we got three audiences to tackle. We're going to first start with you, our LO community. We're going to share kind of some core stuff on the VA business. Then we're going to talk to our realtor community. And then we're going to be talking directly to our veterans. So let's kick this thing off. We got a great panel today. All right, we're here. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Wow, we got a good panel today. I see 61 people have joined so far. This is live, so if you guys have comments and you want questions answered, put them in there. Now, we have a lot of stuff to talk about today and share with you, but we're excited to have you join us today to talk about VA lending. This is a crazy industry. Let me introduce the panel. Down here, Jessica is joining us. So Jessica served at home while her husband was on tour as a Black Hawk helicopter pilot. That's funny, by the way. In the last 2 years, Jessica's done over 133 VA loans. She is on base. She's teaching classes. She has a passion and a heart for veterans and the veteran community. So, Jessica, thank you for joining us today. David Smith, the guy below me right here, this guy is the man. This guy has done more for pushing and training the real estate and the loan officer community forward with veteran knowledge and experience. This guy was a U.S. Army veteran, 8 years in the service, 20 years in lending, and we're going to hear from him today. And that's the best background ever, David. I think you win the background competition, although Patton on this side of me is going for it too. So Patton is an 8.5 year as an Army officer, another Black Hawk pilot himself. And in 2021, Patton closed over 300 VA loans. Year to date, he's over 230, been in the business for 8 years. So if I have to, just shut up and let you guys talk because of your experience and your backgrounds, I'm gonna have done my job today, is just let you guys talk. So let's kick into it. First and foremost, we're going to talk to our loan officer community. That's what these masterminds are about. We want to help drive forward and some collaboration and some knowledge to push ourselves forward. And, I think we need to start with you, David. I really want you to kind of share for our loan officer community, why VA? Like, what's the opportunity? What's the world there? Let's have you kick us off.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate it. Thanks for having me on here. But when it comes to VA, this is just an unbelievable opportunity. Right now, some of the latest numbers that we just saw is there's roughly 22 million people right now who've earned the right to actually use this benefit. And so from a loan officer's perspective, this is it's just one of those markets that we really need to be better educated on. This is a market that has more myths than actual truths out there. And I think that, it's our responsibility to be very educated on how this VA loan program works. And then I think it's our responsibility to be educators because I did serve in the military. And one of the things that I know is that of those 22 million people out there, the greatest majority of them have no idea how this program actually works. Yeah. And so from our loan officer's perspective, we should be out there to really help them better understand how to, navigate these waters, if you will, because this program, quite frankly, is one of the best mortgage options that's available. And all of the changes that have happened to this program make it, pretty much extraordinary at this point. So I think that communication is absolutely paramount. I think that as we're going through the transactions, we're going to run into situations where listing agents may not understand the VA loan, or maybe even the sellers have heard some of the stigma associated with VA. And it's our job to kind of tear that down, be excellent communicators, and really help them, acquire their home ownership using this incredible benefit. So David, that's what I believe in. It's all about education and communication, and that's where we need to be better.
Hit again. What's the opportunity? What's the stats you said at the beginning?
22 million. 22 million veterans and active duty service members who are currently eligible for the VA loan. That also includes National Guard and reservists. And I get that question a lot as I teach these different classes is, do the National Guard or do the reserves, are they eligible? And I think one of the stats that we just heard too was within the last 2 years, kind of going through the COVID time period, as well as, everything else in our country, there's 62,000 National Guard members and reservists who are now eligible for a VA loan that weren't before. So, that opportunity is pretty intense all the way across the country. So,
if I could pique anybody's interest here as you listen to this today, nothing that is going to be said here today, hopefully is shocking, but I hope it encourages you to go get in the game here. The opportunity is gigantic. I do this at every new hire orientation for Loan Depot. I ask someone to raise their hand if they served or stand up if they served. And I've asked someone to raise their hand if they have a family member, parent, grandparent, child who has served. And literally every time, no matter the demographic, no matter the states, it's like 98% of the hands or people are standing. We are all surrounded and impacted by veterans. And so that's an incredible stat. So Patton, kind of, kicking over to you a little bit here. If I'm going to start my journey to understanding how to be effective in VA lending, how to get the education I need, what should I be writing down right now? What are some of the areas that I really got to go tackle to be an effective performer and serve our veterans right?
Sure. I think the first thing would be, well, there are three things really. Number one is eligibility. You got to know who's eligible for a VA loan.
Yeah.
How to figure that out quickly.
Brian put the question right in there. We have the 22 million. How many of those have used it? So let's talk about, keep going. That's a great.
Yeah. So eligibility is one of them. Number two is the calculations. And, there's some things about a VA loan, such as residual income, and then just sheerly in the entitlement calculations. We'll come back to that in a second. So eligibility, how to calculate the specific things with the VA. And then the third thing is you got to speak the language that our veterans are speaking or what our active duty people are speaking. So instead of asking for a pay stub, asking for an LES. When they say they're PCSing from one place to another, or they just use the term PCS, what does that mean? Well, heck, it means you're moving from Fort whatever to Fort whatever. It's pretty simple, but it's all these little acronyms that are just going to fly off the tongues of our veterans. What's an ETS date? Would you even know what to ask? And would you know what that little block on the LES means? What is a COE? Do you know what the certificate of eligibility is? Do you know how to go get one in a matter of minutes when you're talking to somebody? I mean, when I talk to a veteran and they say, hey, I want to use a VA loan, one of the first things I want to know is, are they eligible? Let me pull a certificate of eligibility from the VA website. And so being able to do that. And then, heck, when I bought my house a couple of years ago, I didn't know if I'd used a VA loan before. And I had. And here I am in the business, right? But, it's just stuff that I used it 20 years ago and didn't know it was a VA loan. And so there's a lot of stuff that comes with speaking the language and knowing what to ask for. So let's talk real quick about eligibility.
Yeah.
David touched on it, active versus National Guards. A lot of people will just say, hey, oh, you're a veteran. Let me have your DD-214. There's more to it if you're a National Guard or reservist. You can't just ask for DD-214 because it's going to show that somebody did basic training for 3 months.
Right.
And then entitlement, and can you have a second VA mortgage at the same time as you have a first one? How do you calculate that? Knowing what the county loan limits are and how to do those calculations will help you out a ton.
So Patton, before I get to you, Jessica, Patton, if somebody is just starting out and realizing, hey, I need to deepen my knowledge base. By the way, for everyone listening, we're in a separating market right now. This market separates those from winning and losing. And I hate to sound that extreme, but as we find ourselves in a normal down cycle every 10 to 12 years, this happens every cycle. And one of the biggest ways you can separate yourself out is with knowledge. Mm-hmm. Everyone out there can go, I can give you a lower rate, but when you can really educate and have the knowledge to serve a slice of our community, you really get the advantage to win. So Patton, if I'm Joe Blow, loan officer, just, where would I go to get any of this information? How do I start learning this?
Well, I think you need to seek out and build your network of people that you can reach out to and talk to. I get emails, I get text messages, I get phone calls nearly every single day from loan officers within the industry. They could be currently at Loan Depot or other places, people know that I'm an expert on VA loans and they reach out to me and ask questions. And so that would be one thing, is just to build your network of those people. And then the other thing, the VA has an awesome pamphlet called VA 26-7, VA PAM 26-7. It literally has every rule in it that the VA kind of goes by. So that would be a good place to start in building your knowledge.
So Jessica, let's go to you for a second and talk about, to our loan officer community here, how do we go get VA loans? Where do we find these people? There's 22 million of them. There's all these, where are they? And you've done an incredible job being creative in this space, but share some of your ideas and tactics.
So it's definitely important for us to listen to what David and Patton said and get super educated before you go out looking for any VA clients, because you're going to get a lot of questions that are thrown at you. And personally, when I started looking for our first house, I remember we were making offers and we were literally getting responses like, thank you for your service, but we're going to have to go with a stronger offer, which to me, I was like, I just don't understand. Why is this offer stronger than this offer? And I realized I wasn't incredibly educated in the field yet. My husband didn't understand it. So I went out to really figure out what was going on in the community. And I reached out to all of our veteran friends. And I'm like, hey, last time you made an offer, how did that go for you? Oh, we ended up switching to conventional lending. Tell me why you did that. Well, they didn't like the idea of a VA loan. Mm-hmm. So I realized that the veterans weren't educated either. So I'm like, wait a minute, I got to start from the source. I got to go to the source and make sure that they're educated. So first things first, if you are in the Army, and I know that some other branches do it as well, there's yellow ribbon events. Now, those are pre and post deployment ceremonies. Most of those have on average 150 to 300 veterans in the room who either are eligible or are about to be eligible. I would go in, I would set up a table, because there's all these vendor tables, and I was told, wow, you're the first loan officer who's ever come in here to talk to these people. This is amazing. We would love to have you at every event. And they started reaching out to me to make sure that I was at every yellow ribbon. You get the opportunity to stand up in front of these people about, 30 seconds just to say, this is who I am. And I would get back to my table and there would be a line waiting. Hey, I was told I can't do this. I was told I can't do this. Tell me more. Can we sit down? Can we have a phone call? I would leave with 50 to 100 people who wanted to talk. And they were calling me while they were on deployment. I was getting FaceTimes from, Kuwait or whatever it was. Hey, I'm sitting next to my friend and they didn't think they'd ever qualify. Can you tell them a little bit of information? And I'm still doing pre-approvals from events I did 4 years ago. So I started with the veteran community. I started going to all of their events. Then I started going to the bases on drill weekends, because I work with a lot of National Guard members. Hey, do you mind if I just set up a table? I'll just come in with breakfast and just hang out at my table. Or if you have a couple minutes, do you mind if I just stand up and just introduce myself?
Yep.
No, we would love that. Please tell us more. And again, I would go back to my table after I introduced myself and I would have veterans swarming and saying, please tell me more. I started talking to a lot of different people and doing events all over the place. Like if there was a drill weekend, I would set up at a little coffee shop up the street where all of my friends were going for lunch and just do coffee for conversation and buy coffee for any veteran that came in uniform, or their lunches, or whatever it may be. Just say, hey, come over, say hello. I just want to thank you for your service. That's the end of it. So rather than going and trying to figure out the best way to have veterans come to me, I went to them. I reached out to every outlet I possibly can. And also, you cannot be afraid, because they're more afraid to ask questions than you are to go tell them that you have the answers. And I remember at one of these yellow ribbons, one of the realtors walked in the room and he started pummeling me with questions, talking about that, that little information packet that Patton was discussing. I read that front to back. We get a lot of changes. We get a lot of updates. I have a personal rule that I read at least 30 minutes of guidelines per day, and at least once per week. That's for VA guidelines, because they change so often. So I really like to dig in. And this realtor was like hammering me with questions. And he's like, I want you to say, I'm unsure. Let me get back to you. I'm like, this program excites me. This product excites me. So I want to know everything there possibly is to know about it. And yes, you're going to stump me, but I'm hoping it's less than more often. That way, when my veterans come to me and say, hey, I have a question. I was told I wasn't allowed to do this, or I was unable to do this. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? And how can I overcome that?
Yep. Jessica, to piggyback on your comment, I knew a guy that just set up at a Five Guys that was across from a base and just asked if he could buy burgers for veterans as they walked in. And veterans left the base. They went over to the mall. They wanted a burger. This guy was standing there with a pamphlet, and he just said, hey, by the time you get your burger, let me sit down with you and just share with you some of the benefits of VA financing. No strings. You can walk away as soon as we're done, but your burger's got to cook for 5 minutes. So I'll buy it for you. And I'm sitting here thinking this is the coolest crap ever. Like, not only do you get to do some rad, just buy a bag of burger and say thank you, but they'll sit there and talk to you for 5 minutes and then they'll walk away. And the next time you're setting up a VA home buying seminar, you probably got a list of 100 guys you bought burgers for and gals. You invite them all into the real seminar. So to your point, be fearless. Have a purpose. These people served us, go serve them. And that means go be relentless. Go find the opportunities and attack it.
So many times they are told you are not in the right product. You're not in the right program. You need to call your lender, see if they can do a conventional financing. I just closed a VA condo that it still makes me so excited to talk about, because this client got a pre-approval. They got an accepted offer. They were buying a condo. His girlfriend was pregnant in the same place that his mother-in-law lived, and they were about to have a baby, and he's deploying. So it's like, this was a big deal to get this condo. So he calls me in a complete state of panic. I was not his loan officer. He said, hey, I was just told that I need to come up with over $40,000 to close on this condo. It apparently is not VA approved. The lender said I do not have time to get it approved. She said I need at least 5% down. She was charging him 2 points, and he had closing costs. He said, I have $40,000, but it's every penny in my bank account. Will I use it? Yes. Do I want to? No. So I asked him, I said, how much time do I have? He said 30 days. And listen, if you can't do it, I get it. And I said, 30 days. Good, let's do this. We were cleared to close in about 14 days from the date he submitted his offer over. And the agents were floored. They couldn't believe it. They said, we were told there was no time. As long as you know what you're doing, there's always time to get it done. As long as you know the documentation you need, there's always time to get it done. He still didn't believe me. The day of closing, he's calling me, he said, I don't believe you. They told me this is all I owe for closing costs. Are you sure? And to this day, I mean, it was like, a month ago, I'm getting text messages every day. I can't believe this is a reality. I can't believe we're doing this. This is the greatest gift you could have given us before my deployment. And he gave me the greatest gift, because that is one of the success stories that makes this job worth it.
Dude, I love it, Jessica. So let's get into demystifying some of the myths. And we're going to talk to our realtor community here, but this is also to veterans. This is also to loan officers. First, Ann, I got you. You asked for the VA pamphlet number. There you go, 267. So we'll leave it up here for a second. But we got some great comments coming in. And so what I want to start with is this is a question about assumable loans. And I'm going to leave it on the board, even though it's covering David's face for a second. But David, I want you to jump on this one first, because it's a great question. Rates are super high. You can assume VA loans. People immediately go, hell yes. But there's complexity to this thing. So let's tackle this first, because it's an immediate question, and then we'll get into some answers for some realtors here.
Yeah. So Patton and I talk about this all the time. We work together, and we see the assumable loan come up. There's a lot of things that we need people to understand about this. Number one, the actual assuming of the loan needs to go through the service provider who's actually holding that loan. So if whoever the veteran is that owns that property, the new person would need to get qualified with them. So the biggest question that we get is, does it have to be a veteran, or can it be somebody who's not a veteran? When I look at that, and there's a bunch of different ways to look at it. The answer is both can actually do it. But if a veteran is assuming a veteran loan, then we can actually take their entitlement from their certificate of eligibility. We can transition that over, and that would free up the eligibility for the veteran who's selling their house to use their VA loan again to go buy their next house, right? Now, if it's not a veteran, this is what we want people to understand. If a civilian is assuming a VA loan, they can do that, but the veteran's eligibility stays with that house. The amount of entitlement that they use would actually stay with that house, which would limit what their purchasing power may be in the future. Yep. And if something was to go wrong in the future, so let's say that the civilian, took over that house, and maybe 3 years down the road, they went into foreclosure or short sale or something like that, that would come all the way back to harm the veteran who first had their entitlement with that home. So there's a million different ways to look at it. I know as a veteran, I would probably be a little bit reluctant to let a civilian assume my loan, but I may actually consider it if it was a veteran to veteran. So, and Patton, I'd love to let you kind of fill in some of the rest on that.
Yeah, and probably the biggest hurdle to overcome at this point is just about everybody has a ton of equity in their property. And so you can only assume the current balance. So if somebody bought a house for $300,000 5 years ago and they owe $275, but now the house is worth $500, the person that's purchasing that property is only going to be able to assume the $275 that's left. Right. And you're going to have to bridge that that other 225 or whatever is left over, you need a second mortgage for that, or you need to pay that in cash. You got to have some way to bridge that gap, and those loans are tough to come by at this point.
Yeah. So needless to say, it's complicated, and this is a great reason why we're having this discussion publicly with everybody, because you got to work with the right people. And so let's talk to our real estate community for a second. Jessica, why don't you kick us off with some information that would help them?
Oh, awesome. I'm super excited because my talk is about the VA renovation loans, which I love. So I get the question all the time.
By the way, check this out too. So this question lines up for kind of this thing. If a home is under remodeling and being sold, do we have to do the same as FHA and do a second appraisal if it's sold too soon? So this ties into renovation a little bit. So I'd love you to share some thoughts.
So I believe you still have to wait until day 91 to go in the contract. Patton, can you confirm? I think it's day 91 still to go into contract, but I can double check that.
I don't think so.
From the date well, I'm going to have to double check that one, but you do not need a second appraisal.
So let's talk about renovation first. Say again, David. Patton?
There's not a flip rule.
There's no flip rule for VA, but I thought it was still a 91-day contract. But I could definitely be wrong about that too, which I like to be wrong. I like to be told, nope, you're good. But there is no flipping rule. So I think what he's referring to is the FHA flipping rule, in which if you're going to sell for a percentage higher than what you bought it for, you would need a second appraisal before day 180. So that does not apply to the VA. In regards to the renovation loan, that's a very different product. So you can't use that to flip a property though. So you use that as a primary residence only. And we get the question all the time when clients are making an offer on a property, especially that needs a little bit of work. What if it doesn't pass an appraisal? They do not have to pass appraisals. There is no failing of appraisals for any types of loans. They come back subject to certain items. Well, the VA renovation loan allows up to 100% of the as completed value of a property to be utilized for financing. So if somebody goes in and finds a house that has shingles falling down with a failed septic, and maybe they just want a whole new kitchen and a whole new bathroom, want to do all of the floors, we will actually lend the difference to be able to renovate that entire property from top to bottom. And I've had a lot of clients who have done this. I had a veteran buy a house who actually works for the VA as well and loved the property. They said it's the perfect amount of land, but the house isn't perfect. Now, they added a $250,000 renovation to be able to put an in-law above their garage. They added a homeschool facility. They redid their kitchen. They redid everything in the house. Now they bought their dream location and built their dream home on it, utilizing the renovation loan. And you can do that for single up to 4 family properties.
Yeah, and I want to kick it to you, Patton, for a second. But before I do, I just want to. This is demystifying some of the myths about VA, and renovation financing also has a series of myths behind it. The reality is it's not a complicated product. It's not a complicated process. Patton, share your $3,055,000 VA reno story real quick, and then go into your topic.
Yeah, that's a good one. So I had a VA loan that was a $3 million VA loan, and the sellers were like, we're not paying for anything. Well, it's the termite report required about $55,000 worth of termite repairs, and with the VA, you cannot waive the termite. You can't just say, we're going to fix it after closing. You can't do an escrow holdback for it. So you're somewhat limited. And so I used the VA renovation product. We got a contractor come in, got a quote for $55,000, and we sent that over to the appraiser, and the appraiser said, yeah, it'll appraise for $3,055,000. So we did the loan for $3,055,000 instead of $3 million, and closed that with basically a subject to appraisal, and it gets fixed after the fact, and piece of cake, and really saved that loan, and a lot less heartache for everybody involved. And I've done that for probably, I don't know, half a dozen files this year where those types of issues have come up. So VA renovation, super powerful product. Now the other thing, you want me to just go straight into
dive in.
Okay. So biggest thing I hear from realtors, or one of the biggest things, is, hey, VA appraisals they're just so difficult, and it's they're really hard on the house. And here's a reality. Number one is that appraiser, he's the same guy, or potentially the same guy or gal, who's going to go out and do a conventional appraisal the next day. So the chance is not zero that if you ordered a conventional appraisal, the same person wouldn't get that order. So conventional versus VA, it could be the same person, And quite frankly, they use the same methodology, whether it be conventional or VA. They do comps the same way. That number is probably going to come out almost identical. The second part of this, though, is let's say it doesn't. Let's say the VA appraiser isn't going to appraise the house at purchase price.
Yep.
The beautiful thing about the VA is that they tell you 48 hours in advance, and they say, hey, Tidewater. And so Tidewater is simply the VA appraiser saying, hey, this house is likely to come in short. Send me some comps. And we get that comes to us as a lender. It goes, we send that directly out to the realtors right away and say, hey, the appraiser says this might come in short. And those two realtors can get together and go, no, here's some comps. Here's why we believe it should appraise for value. We send that to the appraiser, and probably half the time, maybe even more than that, the appraiser looks at it and goes, okay, I buy that. I buy your rationale. Here's your appraisal. And a lot of times it's at value. If it doesn't still come in at value, you have the reconsideration of value process that now you can go through that, which is the official process where you go up to the VA and you challenge the value. I can tell you that if the value that you need is less than about 5%, the VA will almost always, with the request of the veteran, the VA will almost always adjust that value by 3 to 5% to help you bridge that gap, because it's not worth. Is it worth, throwing a loan out and maybe having to fall apart for a couple of percent? Probably not. And they're going to come down on the side of the veteran who needs to move in someplace with their family.
So David and Jessica Patton, feel free to dive in this one, because I want to spend the rest of this conversation for our realtor partners on this. The main complaint / myth / problem is the VA loan takes too long. The VA loan's not a good loan. I want a conventional loan. My buyers, my sellers want a conventional loan. We got to hit that head on, David. Like, how do we respond to that?
Yeah, so this comes up all the time. So I train on VA all the time. I've trained over 20,000 real estate agents across the country. I hear all kinds of myths, right? The VA loan takes longer to close. The VA loan can't be used in our market. The VA loan's only for veterans, not for active duty. I've heard all of these things, and quite frankly, this is where most of these myths come from. If we have to start tearing down these walls, it's all about understanding what we can do. So the VA loan takes longer to close is absolutely false, right? So those of us who do VA loans all the time, this is where this is just a regular part of our business. We don't have some of these challenges that we hear out there. Patton could probably give you the exact number, but I know that we average less than 30 days, pretty routinely. So I think that's just being familiar with how the mortgage program works and working with people who can specialize in that. Secondly, when we talk about the VA loan's not eligible in my market, this is one of the biggest changes that's ever happened to VA was January 1st of 2020, when they said that now a VA loan, that we have the ability to get 100% financed for anything that we can financially qualify for.
Yep.
Before this, we've always had to talk about county loan limits. We could only go to a certain amount before we had to start doing down payment responsibilities. This was a massive change. Now it's whatever the veteran can financially qualify for. So if they can qualify for $3 million, they can get 100% financed. If it's only $300,000, then that's okay too. It doesn't matter. And this change is extraordinary because there were so many markets out there that were higher priced markets where veterans wanted to use this benefit, but they couldn't. And I know that a lot of the real estate agents that I talk to and work with, they weren't aware of this change. And so that happened, it literally happened right when COVID started. But this is one of the biggest benefits that's out there. Some of the other things that I do here, because I actually bring my cheat sheet with me from this, is, are VA loans difficult? Does it take longer to close? Does the benefit expire? There's so many things that you should be aware of that veterans are going to ask you that you should be providing, just the perfect spot on answer, right? The benefit does not expire. The VA loan's not more difficult to close. It doesn't take longer to close. They can buy whatever they can financially qualify for. Once they've earned this benefit, they have it the rest of their life. They can use it for multiple homes. And in some cases, they can actually have multiple VA active loans at the same time. So all of these things are out there and available to learn through these different trainings. And I look at the real estate community and I say, this is the time. This is the time where we should be actively pushing this forward. There's so many people out there who want to use this benefit, who don't know it, and our real estate agents are on the front line of that. So That's what I have to say on that. I get super passionate. Sorry, Alec.
No, dude, you're killing it, because Shane asked the same question. Like, why do people think that VA loans take longer to close? And the reason why, Shane, is because they don't have the education. They're not equipped with the knowledge to understand that it's a normal process. Pat, did you have something?
I have a comment on this. Is here's where I think a lot of these misconceptions came from. Is here's a reality for realtors, especially, is the VA, the first time they see this loan is not until after it's closed. Okay, so what has happened in the past is there are some lousy loan officers out there that this is what has gone on is they screwed up at the beginning. They didn't know the guidelines. They didn't know the calculations. Something happened to the loan midway through the process. And instead of taking responsibility and saying, hey, I screwed up as a loan officer, I'm sorry, I misread a guideline, or this person wasn't actually qualified. What they say is, I'm sorry, realtors, the VA denied this loan.
Yep.
And so everybody goes, okay, the VA is this big monstrosity, and nobody really knows how it works, and it's just this, it's the boogeyman out there, and we're going to blame it as a loan officer. I'm just going to blame it on the VA instead of taking the responsibility myself and saying, hey, I screwed up. And it's super easy to do that. And so lots of that has happened over the years, and the VA takes the fall on all these things, and it's really the loan officer that screwed it up. And the person that caught it was the underwriter that works for the loan officer's company and said, hey, you don't know the guideline. You can't use that as rental income, or you can't do this, or you can't do that. And so that's where the VA is taking the fall.
So let me ask this question then as the follow-up, and any of you can answer this, but in your experience, in the years you've done VA loans and focused on it as a specialty, do you feel like they're easier to close than conventional loans, and why?
Yes.
Way easier, because the guidelines are expanded. So you have more debt to income ratio to play with. You have the ability to do things like, there's, for instance, a VA loan, you can have closing costs can be whatever's typical for the area plus 2%. But then there's also 4% of seller concessions. So I could get like the closing costs of 3 or 4% plus another 4% for seller concessions. And I could use seller concessions now to pay off a bunch of debt that the borrower has. And now they qualify for a higher loan amount. And so there's all these flexible things that you can do with the VA that you really don't have the option on with a conventional or with a FHA loan. So it's super, super flexible.
So I love that you just dropped that bomb there, because that's it. The VA wants to do whatever whatever will benefit the veteran. So they have created guidelines that benefit the veteran. Paying off personal debt, there is not another loan program out there that would allow you to do that through a seller's money. With the seller's money. And I've done that. I've helped my veterans get higher pre-approvals when they go out and buy things before closing. But we don't know about. But those were so many key notes that you just made here. This is the best product on the market. And to hear people say, I qualify, but I'm not using it because somebody told me that I should go conventional, makes me crazy every time.
So let's put a bow on this. This is a great question from Shane, and this has to do with our realtor partners and kind of the VA loans being hard. I'm a veteran, active realtor. Are VA appraisers asking for more things to be fixed on a home than a conventional loan appraiser does?
Yes. The answer is yes. It's just like an FHA or a USDA, though. It follows government guidelines, health and safety concerns, and the only other additional item would be the termite. So is it asking for more than conventional? Yes. But if you would accept an FHA or a USDA and maybe the seller does some repairs prior to closing, why wouldn't a VA loan be just as strong as those other options? Because I don't hear the same arguments as often on those other products.
Patton, you had another thought on that too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's significantly different. I think that's one of those things where, the VA, is there a bunch of peeling paint? The VA appraisal is going to say something about it where conventional wouldn't. If there's exposed wiring and a hole in the wall? Yeah, the VA is going to say something about it. Conventional might not. So there are a few things, but I don't see a ton of appraisals come back with just stupid stuff. Mm-hmm. So I don't worry about it too much, and I don't think our realtors and veterans should either. And if it's really that bad, I mean, swap it to a VA renovation product and get a contractor to, say, hey, it's going to be $2,500 of fixes or whatever.
Yep.
And here's another thing. So the VA is, people talk about condos. That's an issue, right? VA condo approvals, and it takes so long with the VA. And if they say no on a condo, I've had the VA say no on a condo, like, hey, there's an issue here. And I've had the veteran just reach out, hey, can you call the VA, call the RLC and the Regional Loan Center, call them up and talk to this person. And they call up and go, hey, can I request a waiver? I want to buy this condo anyway, even though it doesn't fit your guidelines. And the VA's gone. I mean, I've had like 3 of them this year where the VA said, well, sure, go ahead and buy that condo. We'll give a one-time waiver of our rule. It's not approved for the whole complex, but for you, sure, David, you can buy yours, but it's not approved for the whole condo complex. So the VA is willing to work with the veteran. They want the veteran to have someplace to live instead of, sleeping under a bridge somewhere down by the river.
Down by the river. That's my line. Thank you.
Fan. There you go.
All right. So let's spend, we got a lot of questions and I want to save them to the end and we'll get to them, but let's spend a few minutes talking to our veteran community. Because, as we're talking to loan officer community, we're talking to the real estate community. Let's talk to our vets. Again, a lot like the theme you guys have all talked about is just people aren't educated. They don't know what they can do, can't do. So, David, where would you start with our veterans?
Yeah. So when I look at, especially when we talk to the veterans, look, everybody that you're working with is going to matter, right? So, make sure that you're working with a real estate agent, a mortgage company that actually cares, understands, is educated, is doing the right thing. And the reason why I say this is because, I fell into a horrible trap myself. When I first got out of the Army, I moved back to Texas. I was buying my first home. I didn't know anything, which is my fault. And I was convinced by the people representing me that I should do a different mortgage program. And I look back at it, and that decision actually cost me an absolute ton of money. And it's so frustrating. That's one of the reasons why I've been on this path for such a long time now with, beating the drum on education. But when it comes to the VA loan specifically, if you're a veteran, the VA loan, and what makes this thing absolutely extraordinary is, number one, you can get 100% financing. Number two, we're no longer capped for the first time ever. Number three, VA loans have very competitive rates to other programs that are on the market. Number four, the greatest thing about a VA loan is one of the things it doesn't have. It doesn't have mortgage insurance. There is no PMI or MIP or whatever you want to say. That's a huge financial savings to us. And then the last thing that I like to bring up is that if you do have a service-connected disability, which I understand is about 32% of the veteran population out there has a service-connected disability, that would eliminate a bunch of fees on your VA loan as well. And you should be aware of that because not everybody's going to ask, or not everybody even understands where to look for that. So this would eliminate a bunch of fees on your VA loan. If you're active duty right now and you've been awarded a Purple Heart, that will eliminate a bunch of fees on your VA loan. So all of these things are out there. I find the VA loan personally, now that I've moved on and bought more houses, the VA loan has been the best decisions I have ever made. And if you're looking to go buy a home, do not be persuaded to go down a different path without fully understanding what they look like.
Jessica, what would you add?
So in addition to what he said, which are all amazing bits of information, I would say work with somebody who understands the process, because that's the number one complaint that we're all talking about right now. We're talking about the fact that, and we're seeing it in the chatter over here saying, I had one that took too long, or somebody didn't understand it, or like Patton said, they blamed the VA and it got denied. If somebody doesn't understand the guidelines, if they don't understand the process, if they do not understand veterans in general and how to read their earning statements, which is super important because a lot of people do not understand that, then truly you could have a bad experience. Also, if you work with somebody who understands and is up on the lingo and really does like to represent the veteran community, when they call the listing agent to discuss the security of your financing, they are going to be so much more passionate about it. Because every time I get on the phone with the listing agent, the first thing I say is, hey, I just wanted to call to discuss my client's offer who just presented a VA loan that's an earned benefit to them after they just spent X amount of time representing our country and protecting your freedom. And I do often say it like that as well. Sometimes they love it, sometimes they don't, but I firmly believe that. These people spend time making sure that I have the ability to do the job that I'm doing today. to say that their offer shouldn't be presented in the same light, honestly, if not higher than others, to me is really just it's an extreme misfortune to all of us, because it's really sad when I hear that. So work with people who understand you, work with people who truly care about you and are very passionate, because having a bad experience once in one deal shouldn't make the rest of them bitter, so that every time you see a VA loan come across your desk, oh, I'm not going to accept this because I don't think it's going to make it to the closing table. I am sure all of my agents, this is going to make it to the closing table. Want to know why? Because I did my due diligence, like I do with all of my clients, to ensure that they qualify before they go into this offer. Now, the only thing that could stop it is if we have some property issues. Now, if we do, guess what? We have Tidewater. We have a renovation loan, which loanDepot is the only lender on the market that offers the full rent out and is not capped at $35,000. So tell me if you can find a better offer out there to accept. You can't. This is the best product out there. Veterans need to be utilizing it. They need to not be turned away and told to go find a conventional loan. And they need to understand that, honestly, you can take that 5% down payment or 10% down payment, and your payment is going to be lower utilizing 100% financing with a VA loan, because the rates are stronger, because there's no mortgage insurance, and it doesn't make sense because you're losing money when you put it down on the table.
Patton, thoughts for our vets?
You know what? At the end of the day, I mean, there are a lot of places out there where veterans go for loans, or there are a million places you can go. And what I would say is that the company doesn't probably matter as much as it is the person that you're dealing with. You can have a bad experience. You can have a bad experience working with the same company that your buddy bought a house with that had a great experience, somewhere else. And so it's more the people that matter. And so what you really should be doing is finding somebody who you trust, finding somebody who answers the phone every time you call, somebody who answers your text message back on Saturday night when you're going to lose sleep, or your wife is going to lose sleep for 2 nights waiting on an answer until Monday when it's now business hours and somebody answers. I mean, come on, talk to people who understand you, who speak the same language as you. And I think you'll find yourself having a great experience. And it doesn't matter. I served, David served, Jessica, her husband served, right? So she's intimately familiar with all of the things that a veteran or an active duty person is going through. So who you deal with matters, and you got to find that right person.
Let me spend a few minutes on some Q&A, guys. So all of you that are here right now, please reiterate your question. I'm going to scroll up. We got a ton of comments from all the platforms we're live streaming on. So I'm going to try to find the ones, but if you really have a question, let's dive into it. Let me just put a cap on everything these guys have said. Who you work with matters, period. And the platform matters. loanDepot, some companies don't offer via renovation loans, et cetera. You need to have a little platform, because you got to have the product that, we're going to talk about manual underwriting in a second and all this other things, and overlays and FICO overlays. Companies put overlays on their product. So we're going to address all that. But apart from platform, the person you work with matters. There's a lot of companies out there that want to send a narrative to our consumers and our veterans that it's just as simple as pushing a button and getting a mortgage. And that's just not true. The person you're talking to that's providing the advice and the experience just deeply matters. And so if you're a realtor out there and you have a veteran come in, challenge the loan officer and be like, are you experienced? And if you're a veteran out there yourself and you're talking to loan officers and realtors, ask, have you closed loans with veterans? Do you know what's going on? Push the questions in there. This is the key thing to take away. This product is incredible. This product has tons of advantages. You need to work with somebody who can help you take advantage of it. All right, so let's dive into some questions. You guys feel free to raise your hand and answer them, but I got Elliot jumping in with a manual underwriting.
Yeah, absolutely. You can do manual underwriting. That's another reason why VA loans are so great, and I prefer them over any other loan product. Is if it's refer eligible in AUS, I mean, as long as there's some strong compensating factors and all that stuff, and you've written a good file, there's no reason why you can't get somebody approved at a low credit score with some credit mishaps or things like that. Like, absolutely. I submitted one yesterday, as a matter of fact.
How about this question? When I got a condo, is there a quick way to figure out, before wasting time on an offer?
Kind of. I mean, you could call without the questionnaire, which most people are not going to issue without a charge, it could be tough. I did just call an HOA and, got somebody really nice on the phone, and I hammered through some questions, and you can get close to understanding it. But remember what Patton said, you have the ability to get an exception. So if you get a denial, now I have also not been able to collect documents, and I have said to our condo team, please submit that to the VA for me. They said, I'm going to get a denial. I said, perfect. It's exactly what I'm looking for right now, because I don't have time to wait another 3 weeks for an association that's not responding. I got a denial. It was a new construction condo. We were able to get a letter. I sent it over to the VA. Within 24 hours, we had an approval to be able to close, and on time. If we continue to wait for a new HOA that was still developing in this new condo, we would have waited another 2 months. So having that ability, you're still going to close it. You just have to know how to do it.
So this question from Matt came up, and I think he might have just come in later on the stream. So I'm assuming you guys would agree that this VA pamphlet is probably the way to go for this if you're looking to get educated and start your journey on this.
It's definitely a start.
It's definitely fun.
I mean, if you were to start with that pamphlet, I think it could be overwhelming. I would say, go to your company guidelines. I'm assuming they have something that's broken down a little bit more simplistically. Honestly, go search on YouTube. There's a lot of great information. Now, don't take it for fact, because not everyone knows what they're doing, but just hear some information, do a little bit of search for yourself, and then read the pamphlet. Because at least if you can learn the lingo a little bit first, when you get into the pamphlet, I think you'll understand it a little bit more.
And I want to reiterate Patton's comment earlier on that question, which was find the veteran professional loan officers that are doing VA loans and get mentored, ask questions, ask them for a cup of coffee, ask them for a Zoom, like go attack this information like we do everything else. Bernard had a question about repeating that part about closing costs. And I think, Patton, you were talking about seller paying closing costs for a buyer's debt payoff. Was that a comment I remember hearing?
Yeah, so there's two things. Just remember that closing costs and seller concessions are two different things when you're talking VA loans. And so closing costs can be typical for the area. Well, what's that? Well, it's different for your area, my area. All the areas are different, right? So it's a pretty gray number there, right? So typical for the area plus 2% is closing costs, and then you have up to 4% seller concessions. And so I always have my realtors write the offer. If you want 20 grand on a $300,000 purchase, I mean, that's nearly 7%. I just have them write it as 20 grand of closing costs and or seller concessions. Now I can kind of split it up however I need to.
Smart.
There's another question in the box where somebody's saying, hey, sellers may have to pay more, or asking if they have to pay more. I think people think that the sellers have to pay more closing costs for VA loans. And that's just not the case unless the seller or the lender is charging a 1% or higher origination fee. And then there's a list of non-allowable charges that do come in that the seller cannot pay. So you just have to be careful what the lender's charging, but there should not be any more costs for a VA loan versus conventional, especially since June when they changed the rule about who had to pay for the termite inspection.
Got a fun question here by John, a realtor in San Ramon, but it's also for loan officers. Hey, I'm not near any military bases. How do I market to fellow veterans?
Gotcha. Yeah. So I'm in Houston, and we don't, we have a very, very small National Guard base down in South Houston, but I will tell you this, there's also 300,000 households in Houston that have a veteran that live in them. So, my point is veterans are everywhere. And so I look at it from a marketing standpoint. You got to get out there and you got to play in traffic. You need to be authentic. You need to believe in what you're doing. You need to understand what you're doing. But VFWs, American Legions, National Guard posts, recruiting stations, reservist centers, there's all kinds of military, every town I've ever been to has, different military charities or organizations that are in those groups. And if you start to become members of those, or you become friendly with those, and you're leading with education and you're trying to be a supporter, a lot of them will welcome you with open arms. I will also tell you this, and I know that Jessica and Pat are going to agree. We can see a shark from a mile away. If you're going in with bad intentions, you'll be the first one run out. So I'm telling you, you got to be authentic and be a leader in education. And a lot of people appreciate that, and good things will happen.
So let me also share something else. Just to piggyback on David's comment, veterans are everywhere. They're everywhere. And I guarantee you that if you just drop some pins on Google around where you live, you're going to find veteran nonprofits. You're going to find places where veterans hang out. And to David's comment, man, you want to go make an impact. You want to build community. You want to get leads. You want to do their loans. Go serve them. Go hang out. Go be in service. Go figure out what you can do. They smell you 17 miles away. You come in with donuts and you're trying to scam a deal.
Yep.
Go really help the community, and you'll find that they'll repay you in spades. Also, Patton, let's just talk about the internet. There's no military bases on the internet.
Yeah. There's a ton of places on the internet where you can, Facebook groups and whatnot, where you can find veteran groups and there could be a service organization. It could be something like that. Like David said, though, you got to be authentic. You can't go there passing out cards going, call me for your loans. You got to go there. But by the time you spend time with people and start to build a relationship with people and go, hey, I'm just here to be part of this group because it's a great group of people, then people find out what you do and you can, you potentially get deals that way.
And I think that's it too, Pat, right? What do we know about the military community is if you do right by them, you do right by the veteran community, who do they tell?
Yeah, they tell their friends. Absolutely.
They tell everyone.
Nathan put this comment, I think it's relevant. A lot of police officers and some firefighters have veteran experience, are vets in their past life, so they're everywhere, my friends. They're hiding everywhere. You can't get rid of them.
And I see this all the time too, Alec, because I'm licensed in 49 states, and so people within our organization will refer me a loan for somebody. Hey, we've got somebody who's buying in Ohio, and I'm not licensed there. Can you do it for me? Sure. And they send over the file, and I get to talking to this person. I go, hey, so are you a veteran? Oh yeah, I'm a veteran. I literally did one of these where the loan officer that referred it to me had never asked them if they were a veteran, and they were actually under contract on a house already. And hey, can you do this loan for me? Sure. And I just asked them, hey, are you a veteran? Well, why aren't we doing a VA loan? Well, I didn't know I was eligible to do a VA loan.
Yep.
Well, let's freaking do a VA loan. And it was a far better product with less down payment and all that stuff. I mean, it was, just simply asking that question to every single one of your borrowers. Hey, did you ever serve? And you'll be surprised how many people just totally forgot to mention that because they served 25 years ago or 30 years ago.
So we're coming up on our time. Let's do some final comments to our community we're talking to. So Jessica, anyone you want to address, loan officers, realtors, vets, all of them, what final comments do you have about the VA program?
I mean, I think we discussed that. I think a lot of the questions here are pertaining to how to get referrals. I always joke because I work with two of the most loyal clienteles in the world, which is moms and military. And those also go hand in hand too, because a lot of times those moms that are at home are doing those military loans. So my biggest clientele, moms and military, which a lot of them are police and fire because my husband was actually guard. He was full-time guard. So a lot of my clients also are policemen, firefighters. If they send me one, they send me a million more. I think I laugh because I did an entire fire department in 2021 and we still talk all the time. But staying in front of your people, educating them, keeping them up to date on what's going on, answering their questions, the text messages, like he said. I joke all the time with my clients. I said, I don't have hours in this business because here's the thing. If you lose a house on a Saturday night because you're afraid to text me at 10 o'clock, you're going to be a lot more upset with me than you are going to be with yourself for actually sending that text message. So make sure you reach out, ask questions. It's okay to do that. And just know that by taking care of other people, they want to take care of you. The referrals come because you did a good job and you put them first. Their needs always need to come before your own. So make sure that your clients always know that they're the most important people. And that especially goes with our military community who served us. So now it's our turn to serve them.
Patton, final comments to the community out here?
Yeah, you know what? This is, I think this is a comment more, and it's a lot of what Jessica just said too, is what are we in this business for? If you're in this business to serve yourself, because you think you can make a lot of money, because all those types of things, because people see through that. And veterans, I think, are extraordinarily good at seeing through self-serving type people. But just in general, I think if you show up every day with a desire and a heart to serve other folks and to treat them right, I think that's going to come through, and you're going to get people are going to refer you to their friends. They're going to refer you to their family. They're going to refer you to other veterans. I mean, veterans talk to each other a lot. Like all of my friends are veterans. I mean, the people I hang out with are veterans. And so the chances that if you do a great job for me, that I'm going to tell other people about it are pretty doggone high. And so, so come with the right heart and the right attitude, and I think you're going to be okay.
David, bring us home.
All right. So for the real estate community and the loan officer community, I think it's our responsibility now to change the stigma. I've been in this industry for 20 years. I remember when VA was more of a challenge than it is today. But I think if there's one overarching message, things have changed. This thing has gotten, so much better over the course of time that, what got us here and the stigma that got us to this point, it's now time to erase that. This should be a program that we're leading with. This should be a program that we're asking all of our clients, did you serve? Have you used this? Have you used it before? Are you aware of it? All of those things. And to our consumers who are out there, we know that, I want to say somewhere around 55% of all veterans buying a house are first-time home buyers. Yes. There are amazing resources out there for you to understand this program and learn this program. And I don't think, and I know in today's world, we're far more educated than we've ever been in the past. Don't sleep on this one, because the VA program, the VA mortgage program is extraordinary.
Last thing I'll say, everybody, first of all, thank you for joining us. So many great comments. Jennifer put in there, happy birthday to the Marine Corps tomorrow. But I'll just say this. There's a lot of people out there that want to take advantage of veterans. If we don't acknowledge that at this moment, at the end of this whole thing, then we're making a mistake. I just want to reiterate to everyone listening to this, realtors, loan officers, and vets, who you work with matters. Do your homework, do your diligence. There are people out there that care deeply about you, that have tons of knowledge about you, that know how to serve you the best, and they're ready to help you anywhere they can. So Patton, David, thank you both for your service. Jessica, thank you for the service you did while your husband was out there as well. And I appreciate everybody out there. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you soon. Take care.
Thanks, guys.